What do spiders, heights, darkness, and even the number 13 have in common? For millions of people, they can trigger racing hearts, sweaty palms, and an overwhelming urge to escape. We call these intense fears phobias, a word that sounds clinical, almost scientific. But why is it called a phobia in the first place? Where did the term come from? And how did it evolve into the psychological label we use today? The answer takes us back thousands of years to ancient myths, early medicine, and the fascinating way language shapes our understanding of fear. Let's explore, right here, on History of Simple Things. The word phobia comes from the ancient Greek word phobos, which means fear, panic, or terror. In Greek mythology, Phobos was not just an abstract idea, but a literal figure. Phobos was the son of Ares, the god of war, and Aphrodite, the goddess of love. As a mythological character, Phobos accompanied his father into battle, spreading terror among soldiers before swords ever clashed. His very presence represented overwhelming, paralyzing fear. From this mythological root, the Greeks began using phobos more generally to describe intense fear or panic, especially the kind that overtakes rational thought. Over time, the term traveled through Latin and into modern European languages. As scientific thinking developed in the 18th and 19th centuries, scholars began borrowing classical Greek and Latin roots to name newly studied conditions. Medicine and psychology, in particular, leaned heavily on ancient languages to create precise, universal terminology. So when doctors needed a word to describe irrational, persistent fears that went beyond normal caution, phobia was a natural choice. It connected the emotional experience of terror with a long linguistic tradition, giving the condition both historical depth and scientific authority. But what exactly separates a phobia from ordinary fear? Fear itself is a normal and healthy response. If you see a venomous snake or stand at the edge of a cliff, your body activates its fight or flight system. Your heart beats faster, adrenaline floods your bloodstream, and your senses sharpen. This reaction is designed to protect you. A phobia, however, is different in intensity and proportion. It involves an excessive, persistent fear of an object or situation that poses little or no actual danger. The response is not just strong, it is often uncontrollable and deeply distressing, interfering with daily life. As psychology developed as a formal field in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, researchers began classifying different types of phobias. Sigmund Freud explored how unconscious conflicts might manifest as irrational fears. Later behavioral psychologists examined how phobias could be learned through traumatic experiences or conditioned associations. For example, if someone has a frightening encounter with a dog, they may begin to associate all dogs with danger, even if most are harmless. Over time, the fear can generalize and intensify, becoming a full-blown phobia. The naming of specific phobias also follows the Greek tradition. Arachnophobia combines arachne, meaning spider, with phobia, to describe a fear of spiders. Claustrophobia blends the Latin claustrum, meaning enclosed space, with the Greek root. Acrophobia comes from acron, meaning height. Even more unusual terms like triskaidekaphobia for fear of the number 13 follow the same pattern. By attaching phobia to a descriptive root, language allows us to label and categorize countless specific fears, some common and some extremely rare. Interestingly, the suffix phobia has expanded beyond clinical psychology. In modern usage, it can describe strong aversions or prejudices, such as xenophobia, the fear or dislike of strangers or foreigners. In these contexts, the word still carries the core meaning of fear, but it often implies hostility or bias rather than a medical condition. This linguistic evolution shows how powerful and flexible the root Phobos has become. What began as a mythological embodiment of battlefield terror now shapes discussions about mental health and even social attitudes. Scientific understanding of phobias continues to grow. Brain imaging studies show that the amygdala, a small almond-shaped structure deep in the brain, plays a crucial role in processing fear. In people with phobias, the amygdala can become hyperactive when exposed to the feared object or situation. This heightened response helps explain why phobias feel so overwhelming and automatic. The brain reacts before conscious reasoning has a chance to intervene. Even when someone knows their fear is irrational, their body responds as if the threat were real. Fortunately, phobias are also highly treatable. One of the most effective methods is exposure therapy, a form of cognitive behavioral therapy. In controlled gradual steps, individuals face the source of their fear while learning coping strategies to manage anxiety. Over time, repeated exposure can reduce the brain's alarm response. The once terrifying stimulus becomes manageable, even mundane. This process demonstrates that while the word phobia may have ancient roots, our ability to address and overcome these fears is grounded in modern science. So why is it called a phobia? Because thousands of years ago, the Greeks gave a name to the raw, consuming force of fear. That name, born from mythology and carried through centuries of language, became a scientific term describing one of the most intense forms of human anxiety. From the battlefields of ancient legends to the therapy rooms of today, phobia captures a universal experience, the moment when fear grows larger than reason. And in understanding the word's origin, we gain a deeper appreciation for how language, history, and psychology intertwine to explain the powerful emotions that shape our lives. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.